Have you ever wondered what really goes through your husband's mind when he looks at you in silence? How many times have you asked yourself if you are doing enough, if what you give in the marriage is truly what he desires most, or if there is something hidden that he never says but that deeply affects him? That is exactly what we are going to talk about today. Get ready, because many of the things I will reveal may seem simple at first glance, but they have an enormous impact on a man's heart. And if you are a wife, this might be the key to better understanding the man who walks by your side. Now, before we start, let me invite you, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with other women who also need to hear these truths. The content you're about to receive today can transform your relationship. The first expectation that every husband has of his wife, but almost never says directly, is respect. You might think, but I respect my husband. However, the issue is much deeper than that. For a man, respect is not just about kind words, but about attitudes that make him feel valued. A husband needs to feel that his opinion matters, that his voice carries weight within the marriage, that he is someone whose presence is essential for the balance of the family. When the wife makes all the decisions alone, when she ignores what he thinks, even in small everyday situations, he feels diminished. Men have an inner need to be seen as leaders, not in the sense of dictators or controllers, but as partners who occupy a place of responsibility and protection. Many women don't realize that small actions can undermine that respect. For example, when you expose his flaws in front of friends or family, it may seem like harmless fun, but for him, it's a blow to his self-esteem. When you make important decisions without consulting him, it may seem practical, but for him, it's a sign that his opinion is irrelevant. Respect is built through gestures like asking for his opinion before something important, valuing him in front of the children, recognizing the efforts he makes for the family. Of course, this doesn't mean giving up your voice, much less accepting injustices. True respect is not blind submission, but a way of showing your husband that you see him as someone worthy of trust. And do you know what the effect of that is? When a man realizes he is respected, he becomes even more open to listening to you, starts to trust your opinions, and values your decisions more. Respect generates reciprocity, and the more he feels this from you, the more willing he will be to respect you as well. And here's a secret. The way you treat your husband in front of others has a huge impact on the way he sees himself. If you praise him publicly, highlight his qualities, show pride in him, you not only strengthen his self-esteem, but also build a stronger relationship. Respect is the foundation of any healthy marriage, and when it's missing, the house slowly falls apart. Now I ask you, how is this area in your marriage? Have you been showing your husband that you truly respect him? Or have you been letting small details slip away that might be undermining your relationship? If this point touched you, write here in the comments, I want to learn to respect better. This will mark your commitment to transforming the way you relate to your husband. There is a silent need inside every man that, if left unmet, can slowly corrode the relationship: admiration. And here is a point that many women confuse. They think admiration is something automatic, that it doesn't need to be verbalized because, after all, he already knows I love him. But it doesn't work like that. Men can't read minds. He might sense your affection in daily gestures, but nothing compares to the power of affirming words, sincere compliments, and the posture of a wife who positions herself as her husband's #1 fan. Have you noticed how men rarely compliment other men? When they are in groups, the usual way of interacting is through jokes, nicknames, or playful teasing. And do you know what that means? That the most likely place for him to hear a true compliment is at home, from his wife. This even explains why many sons are so attached to their mothers, because they were the ones who constantly reinforced their qualities, who saw the best in them, even when flaws were present. When this role of admiration isn't filled by the wife, the husband often becomes vulnerable, starved for recognition. and is in that gap that many relationships begin to weaken. Admiring doesn't mean ignoring flaws. Everyone has weaknesses, including you. The question is, where is your focus? When you look at your husband, what do you see first, his mistakes or his strengths? It's striking how humans tend to get used to the good and focus more on what bothers them. But in marriage, this habit can be destructive. If you spend more time criticizing than complimenting, your husband will start to feel like nothing he does is enough. And that's dangerous ground. Because when a man doesn't feel admired at home, he may seek validation elsewhere, at work, among friends, in hobbies, and in worse cases, in outside relationships. Now picture this. A husband comes home after a long day at work. He knows he faced challenges, that he gave his best. And as he walks through the door, the first thing he hears from his wife is criticism. You're always late. You never help with this. You only think about work. She doesn't realize it, but she's slowly erasing his desire to draw closer to her. Now switch the scene. The same husband comes home and hears, "Honey, I admire your dedication so much. I'm proud of you. I see how hard you work for our family." The difference is striking. In the first scenario, he feels that no matter what he does, it's never enough. In the second, he feels recognized, valued, and therefore more connected to his wife. And here's a secret most women don't understand. A man grows when admired by his wife. Compliments work like fuel. The more admired he feels, the more he wants to achieve, the more he strives to keep that sparkle in her eyes. And I'm not just talking about compliments related to work or physical appearance. Admiration can be in the small things. "I love the way you're such a present father. I admire your intelligence. I appreciate how you solve problems." These small recognitions are enormous for him. Maybe you're thinking, "But I'm not the type who gives compliments." Well, this isn't about your personality style. It's about your husband's emotional need. If you want to strengthen your marriage, you need to learn to express admiration. It's not enough to feel it. You must say it. Words have the power to build up or tear down. And here's another detail. Admiration shouldn't only be private. When you express it in front of others, the impact multiplies. Imagine how valued he feels when he hears you say, in front of friends or family, "This is the hardest working man I know. I'm so lucky to have someone so dedicated by my side." These gestures not only boost his self-esteem, but also protect your marriage against external comparisons and internal insecurities. So now I want to challenge you. When was the last time you looked into your husband's eyes and said, "I admire you"? When was the last time you highlighted a strength instead of pointing out a flaw? If it's been a while, this may be the first step to rekindling your connection. And if this message is already stirring something in you, comment below, "I choose to admire more." That phrase will be your public commitment to turn criticism into compliments and rebuild admiration as the foundation of your marriage. Many times when we think about a man's heart in marriage, we imagine that he is simple, practical, and straightforward. There's even that common phrase, "men are basic." They don't complicate things. But is that really true? The truth is that behind male silence are deep expectations, some obvious, others carefully hidden. These are desires that rarely come up in everyday conversations, yet they shape how he sees his wife, the relationship, and even himself. Ignoring these expectations is like trying to drive a car without paying attention to the fuel. You may go a few miles, but eventually the engine stops. Deep down, a man longs for much more than physical presence or shared household responsibilities. He craves recognition, emotional support, companionship, and even a dose of admiration that fuels his self-esteem. His silence does not mean the absence of need, but rather the difficulty of expressing it. Men have been culturally conditioned not to speak of their vulnerabilities. Many carry within themselves the idea that showing weakness is a sign of failure. when in reality it is precisely this openness that could bring a couple closer together. How many wives have said, "My husband doesn't say anything, it feels like he doesn't care"? And how many husbands have thought, "There's no point in talking, she won't understand"? This creates an invisible wall inside the home. The wife wants communication, the husband wants understanding without needing to explain too much. It may sound contradictory, but this is where the secret lies. Behind those few words, there are unspoken expectations. He longs to be respected, even when he makes mistakes, to be supported, even when he doesn't know what to do, to be valued for small, everyday actions like fixing something around the house or protecting the family in difficult times. For him, these gestures carry far more meaning than they may seem. When the wife notices and validates these actions, his heart warms in a way he will rarely be able to put into words. This silent need for recognition is one of a man's greatest emotional drivers. When met, it strengthens the marriage bond. When ignored, it creates a deep well of frustration. And here's the part that keeps your attention. Most wives do not notice these expectations until there is already distance, coldness, or even the risk of separation. That is why talking about this subject is so urgent. Maybe today you need to stop and reflect. What are my husband's unspoken expectations? Have I been paying attention to them, or am I living on autopilot? This simple reflection may be the beginning of a powerful transformation in your home. And I want to hear from you. Have you ever identified some of these expectations in your relationship? Share in the comments, because your experience might help others see things more clearly. And of course, if this content makes sense to you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. That way, you will continue receiving messages that can save and restore relationships every single day. There is something that few people talk about openly, but every man feels it in marriage: the weight of responsibility. Even when the wife contributes financially, even when life seems balanced, there is inside him a silent pressure to be the provider, the protector, and the safe harbor of the family. This pressure comes from society, culture, upbringing, and even the way men were trained to see their role at home. And this weight is not light. It is a burden that many times he does not share with anyone. Imagine carrying the feeling that if something goes wrong, if money short comes, if a crisis arises, everything will fall on your shoulders. This creates anxiety, sleepless nights, and even emotional distance. How many men have withdrawn from their wives simply because they felt too overwhelmed, unable to talk about their struggles? Their silence does not mean indifference, but exhaustion. It is as if they were saying, "I need to be strong, but I don't know if I can." And here lies one of the greatest dilemmas. Many men deeply wish their wives could understand this invisible weight, not to demand less, but to walk together. The simple act of a wife looking her husband in the eyes and saying, "I trust you, we're in this together," can lift tons of emotional pressure. This is one of the greatest secrets of a man's heart. He does not need a perfect wife. He needs a partner who helps him carry invisible burdens. When this happens, a man not only feels stronger, but also more emotionally connected. And that connection creates a virtuous circle. The more he feels understood, the more he opens up. The more he opens up, the greater the intimacy grows. But when this does not happen, when the wife only demands results, points out failures, and does not notice his effort, he closes himself off, distances himself, and often seeks refuge in distractions that only widen the gap between them. This is the turning point that many couples do not see until it is too late. It is like a glass filling drop by drop until it overflows. With every demand lacking empathy, with every criticism lacking recognition, with every look of distrust, the glass fills up. And when it overflows, it is not just about one fight or one moment of crisis. It is about years of unmet expectations. That is why, if you are a wife, I ask you this question. Have you been looking at your husband as a flesh and blood human being with fears, pressures, and limits, or only as someone who has the obligation to handle everything? This reflection is transformative because it changes how you communicate, how you support, and how you connect. A husband who feels supported and partnered not only stays, but flourishes in marriage. He feels motivated, inspired, and capable of facing any challenge. And it is precisely this that strengthens the marital bond. Now I want you to pause and think. Have you been that partner? Have you been lightening or increasing the invisible weight your husband carries? Answer here in the comments because your testimony may open the eyes of many other women who have not yet realized this reality. And if this content is touching your heart, do not forget to like and share this video. It helps us reach more families who need this message of hope. Inside every man, no matter how strong, serious, or reserved he may seem, there is an almost invisible need to be admired by the woman he loves. This hunger for validation is not about superficial vanity, but about identity. A husband may receive compliments at work, be respected by friends, even be recognized by others, but nothing compares to the power of his wife's admiration. When she looks at him with pride, when she recognizes his qualities, when she expresses gratitude for efforts he rarely even mentions, something within him grows stronger. It is as if he hears, "I am enough, I am valued." And here lies a secret many wives do not realize. When a man does not feel admired at home, he becomes vulnerable to the distractions of the world. This does not necessarily mean infidelity, but it may lead to hiding in excessive hobbies, endless hours on the phone, compulsive work, or even silent withdrawal. All of these are, deep down, attempts to fill the gap of missing validation at home. But when the wife recognizes, appreciates, and verbalizes her admiration, the entire dynamic changes. The husband gains more energy, more motivation, and even more patience. After all, the validation from the woman he loves is emotional fuel. Think about it. How many times as a wife have you sincerely thanked him simply for working every day, for being present, for making an effort for your family? It may seem obvious or even an obligation, but for him, hearing this sincerely is like receiving an unexpected gift. In those moments, he feels truly seen. And here lies a common misunderstanding. Many women confuse admiration with flattery, but that is not what this is about. True admiration is not invented, it is not artificial. It is born from a careful look at small actions. It is when you notice the effort no one else sees. It is when you praise not just the victory, but the process. This kind of validation is so powerful, it can transform the atmosphere at home in just a few days. A man who feels admired tends to be more loving, more present, and even more open to dialogue. The opposite is also true. When he feels constantly criticized, diminished, or ignored, his heart slowly closes. The relationship loses color, loses spark, and falls into a cycle of demands that suffocate. That is why I invite you now, this week, choose one gesture your husband makes, no matter how small, and express your admiration for it. Do this sincerely, without expecting anything in return. Watch his reaction. You may be surprised at how a simple compliment can strengthen your bond. And I want to hear from you. Has a single compliment ever completely changed the atmosphere in your relationship? Share it in the comments because your experience may inspire others. And if this message makes sense to you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. That way, you will keep receiving content that can transform your marriage day after day. There is a silent pain that many men carry within marriage, the feeling of no longer being a priority in their wife's life. At the beginning of the relationship, Everything revolves around the couple. Every gesture, every word, every detail seems centered on the other. But over time, responsibilities, children, work, and even household routines begin to take the place that once belonged to companionship. Little by little, the husband notices he is no longer the first option, and even if he never says it out loud, this realization eats away at his heart. A man who feels that his wife puts everything ahead of him, children, family, work, even social media, starts to believe he is no longer that important. And here lies the critical point. When a husband feels that he has lost his place as a priority, he also loses part of his motivation to fight for the relationship. This is not about competing with children or responsibilities, but about knowing that there is still a special place reserved for him in his wife's heart. When a woman demonstrates through simple actions that her husband is a priority, the relationship gains strength. Preparing a meal with him in mind, setting aside time just to talk, showing genuine interest in what he enjoys, all of this communicates something powerful. You matter to me. You have not been pushed aside. Small details like waiting to have dinner together, setting time aside for just the two of you, even in the middle of a busy day, or turning off the phone to listen attentively, can restore trust and emotional connection. But when that space doesn't exist, the man feels relegated, forgotten, invisible. And there is no greater pain for a husband than feeling the woman he loves no longer has time or energy for him. It's as if married life turns into a functional partnership, without affection, without tenderness, just splitting bills and responsibilities. The danger is that if this distance is not addressed, it creates a huge emotional gap. So let me ask you, does your husband truly know he is a priority in your life today? Not just through words, but through concrete actions that show it. This reflection alone can transform how he feels in the marriage. Try this. Choose one gesture this week that clearly demonstrates he comes first. It can be something as simple as making his favorite meal or dedicating a few minutes of undistracted attention. Watch how he reacts. The response may surprise you. And now, I want to hear from you. Share in the comments what simple action you believe can show your husband he is a priority. Your experience may inspire other women to realize the power of small gestures. And if this message touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Together, we can build stronger, healthier, and more loving relationships. Have you noticed how everything we talked about today is connected? The silence that destroys, the lack of priority, the absence of admiration, the loss of intimacy, and the emotional distance, they are like pieces of the same puzzle. Once one comes loose, soon all the others begin to fall apart. But the good news is that the same logic applies to rebuilding. Once you start putting one piece back in its place, little by little, the others also find their way. It's not about transforming everything overnight, but about taking the first step. Maybe today, that first step is simply sending a message to your partner saying, "I admire you, and I want to fight for us." Words like these have the power to break walls that seemed unbreakable. What truly destroys a relationship is not the lack of love, but forgetting to practice love daily. And that, my friend, can change right now if you decide. So if this video spoke to your heart, leave a comment below sharing which part touched you the most. I'd love to hear your story because it might also inspire others going through the same struggles. And don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the upcoming content that can transform your life and your relationship. The journey of true love isn't easy, but it's the most valuable one of all. And remember, if you place God at the center, nothing can shake the home you are rebuilding together.